Vlad is a young orphan born in the slums of Shora who's always dreamed of a better life, but had no means to achieve it. He has struggled just to survive, so making grand ambitions seem foolish. But what he and no one knows is that he possesses the potential to become the greatest swordsman in the world. Beyond talent, he has the willpower and sheer insanity necessary to become the deadliest killer. And even amidst of all that misery, he swore that if given the chance, he would change his life. But is that really true? When things took a turn for the worse, far beyond his imagination, he caught a glimpse of an opportunity to pursue his ultimate dream. However, he would have to start from the very bottom. It doesn't matter if you're not high up in a night sky or if you're trapped, being invisible in the misery of a slum. From amidst the rubble and trash, a hand rises. As long as you want to shine, as long as you have light in your heart. If you believe, then you are a star. In front of a blacksmith's shop, a boy observes a sword. He smiles, saying he never gets tired of looking at it. Someone suddenly calls out to him, saying they knew he had gotten distracted again. The protagonist recognizes her as Jamina, who calls him Vlad, saying that lately he's been very distracted. He tells her to go easy on him because that's one of the few pleasures he has in life. However, Jamina warns that standing there like a lunatic is making a lot of people talk about him. He wants to know what they're saying about him as she looks around. Approaches and asks if he still hears that voice when he looks at a sword. He seems to ignore it, and she says that apparently he did something terrible in his past life. What kind of person would be struck by lightning in the middle of nowhere? Especially a black lightning. She warns that he should spend more time at home, since the new bishop doesn't like this kind of omen. Besides, he worked for the Inquisition, so if he hears about these things, Vlad could be burned at the stake. Vlad says she's exaggerating, and she responds that he never listens. She reminds him that several people saw him get struck by lightning, so it's best he doesn't give them more reasons to be interrogated by the church. Vlad says it doesn't make any sense, and all he's doing is looking for a sword. She says that sometimes he's very frustrating and asks why he doesn't just buy it on credit. Vlad explains it's too expensive, and she says it doesn't make sense. It's just a piece of metal, so how expensive can it be? After a brief silence, he says it costs 5 gold coins. Jamina says he must be joking. With 5 gold coins, you can live for an entire year, which is much better than a piece of metal. Suddenly, someone shouts, asking who called it a piece of metal. It's the blacksmiths, saying that sewer rats like the two of them don't even deserve to look at that masterpiece. But Jamina says that only sewer rats pass in front of his shop anyway. So who does he expect to buy that thing? Is the old man already getting senile? The blacksmith says she's a pest for saying something like that. But Jamina continues, saying she doesn't know why he makes swords, since no knights pass through that failed place. The old man yells at the two of them, telling them to go back to their shop and wash some dishes. The girl gets angry, asking how he dares to say that to a young lady. Vlad pulls her and tells her to stop provoking the blacksmith, who is cursing and saying he won't waste more words on them. Watching them leave, the old man thinks they're really rotten. He saved the two from misery, and now he's being repaid with insults. In those cold times, it was he who gave them a lot of food. He gets angry and decides to go back to his shop, but not before noticing something. Vlad's footprints in the fog indicate that once again he stood there for a long time. But the blacksmith says he should be thinking about how to survive and not about how to get a sword. Those who come from a place like this can't fill their heads with dreams, or they will end up bitter and disappointed. This is something the blacksmith knows very well. Observing the sword, he says he will only sell it to someone who has the ability to leave this place. He doesn't want his masterpiece to rot here forever. However, looking at the blade, he says that in a way it reminds him of the boy. Even in the filth of this slum, he somehow still manages to shine. This city is the main trading hub of the northern region and is ruled by the powerful Bayezid family. This is the region of Shora. But beneath all this beauty and splendor, there is shadow. And it is precisely where the slum is located, a place where everything considered trash and disgusting is abandoned. In a busy bar on the second floor, a man drags a girl by her hair, asking if she really thought she could deceive him like that. Being dragged, she wants to know what he means by being deceived. He says he's been a mercenary for 20 years and won't be made a fool of. Someone comes down the stairs saying that there's never a moment of peace there. The bald man points at Vlad and says it's good he showed up, but tells him to call the madame of that place. Vlad warns that spending time with the madame requires payment in gold, not silver. The bald man angrily says that this place is trash to be spending gold on and claims that with that money he could even buy his mother. Vlad just stares at him, but the bald man says that the candles they are using are a scam. He hadn't even taken his shirt off properly, and the thing had already gone out. Vlad asks if he really thought he could have fun with a 5-minute candle. He says that if he's so poor that he can't buy more time, he should go home and squeeze his own wife's butt. The man's veins are bulging even on his bald head, and Vlad says he's too noisy, so he'll have to show him something. He points to the clock and says they will use it to see if the candle really lasts 5 minutes. If the candle doesn't last, he can take out all of his frustration on the woman he's holding. The bald man angrily says he doesn't want to believe a bunch of scammers like him. Vlad says he will have to participate in this bet, and if the candle lasts more than 5 minutes, then he'll have to get beaten until he loses a few years of his life. The mercenary trembles, wondering how such a young kid can have such a terrifying look. But without hesitation, Vlad lights the match and says they will now find out who the scammer is. The bald man sweats as time passes and the girl watches. Everyone in the bar is eager to see what will happen in the end. Finally, the candle goes out. The bald man turns to the clock and sees that 5 minutes have passed, and he already takes a hit to the face. The poor guy stumbles backward, and Vlad announces that exactly 5 minutes have passed. He lifts his foot and kicks the bald man in the butt. He falls into a small room. Vlad enters and closes the door, warning him that he can start praying now. Desperate, the chubby man asks him to wait, but Vlad doesn't forgive and starts beating him, saying that he seems to be the liar here. He orders him to repeat that thing he said about the mother he doesn't even have. With that, the poor guy takes a beating. The next day, someone eating says that the cannibals are not lasting 5 minutes. It's Vlad asking if they heard what he said. A knight eats calmly, and Vlad calls him George and says that they're trying to mess with the main source of money they have. Suddenly, a girl in that room screams, asking if I have the courage to mess with the sacred candles of that place. Vlad says they will have to find that out. The girl says it's really good because that's now his new job. Vlad is confused, wondering how he will discover that. Suddenly, the girl says she already knows, and Vlad asks who it was then. She reveals that it was herself who messed with the candles. She is Marcella, a dame of the smiling rose, saying she was just trying to get more money out of that bunch of drunks. She is radiant while George and Vlad say nothing. Sometime later, he is going down the stairs thinking he beat the guy for no reason at all. But what can he do? If the madame did it, then it's done. Suddenly, someone calls for him and says they heard he got into a fight yesterday, but thanks him for solving it and asks why things go wrong when he leaves for a bit. He hugs Vlad and says they need some extra money. Maybe he receives some tips from the candles he sold. Vlad asks what Barry thinks he's doing. The guy backs off, telling him to take it easy and that there's no need to make a scary face. He's not asking for the money, he's suggesting a deal. Vlad asks what kind of deal. Barry says that if Vlad hands over the money, he will give him something he wants. A pickpocket, somewhat silly, somewhat crooked, and totally incompetent. He lifts the boy by his hair and asks if Vlad recognizes him. He says he will sell him for 40 silver coins, which is almost a steal, it's so cheap. Vlad asks how the boy's fingers and ankles are. Barry says he's still intact and they would never sell something damaged. They only gave him a little adjustment, but he's still healthy and strong. Vlad tells them to go to hell and throws the money on the ground. But he warns that next time, they shouldn't call him and should kill the kid. Barry and his friends leave, saying they're too honest to kill a boy like that. But Vlad knows they're all a bunch of liars. As they leave, they comment that it was obvious Vlad would accept the offer. There must be some reason he's buying all these street kids. Vlad calls out the name Ned. The boy apologizes and says he tried to escape, but Vlad stares at him and asks if they broke anything. Ned says no. He then tells the boy to disappear before he has to beat him too. Ned gets up and thanks Vlad. Vlad wonders how he's going to gather 5 gold coins at this rate. The city of Shkora is bustling, and someone writing says the boy was lucky. He could have lost both fingers for trying to steal like that. This man is Harvem, Captain Hoover's attendant. He had his fingers cut off and his ankles slashed, because the bishop wanted to make an example of him last time. Harvem comments to Vlad that he heard the candles from the Smiling Rose had been tampered with. Vlad says information is traveling very fast lately, and Harvem says everyone is saying it was the madame's doing, but he knows she's not like that and would never do something like that. Vlad says that's the case and that George isn't someone who likes to cause trouble without reason either. But Harvem isn't naive and says that since they know the guy did this, he must have a very good reason. Vlad asks what he thinks the reason is, and the boy replies that the guy must be in urgent need of money. So it's good to be careful because there's only one reason families start gathering money so desperately: a war against another family. At the moment, there are 5 bosses who coordinate the slums of Shkora. George, who is known as the guard of the brothel girls, the Black Bear, the gambling guy known as Dice, Captain Hoover, and lastly, the guy known as the Stingy Hand, One-Armed Jack. The scariest things in life approach us silently from the shadows. And at this moment, Jack is in front of Vlad asking where the boss is. Vlad knows that accidents happen without any warning and destruction always comes unexpectedly. He wonders why the Stingy Hand is there in front of him. Are they preparing for war? The guy beside him yells at Vlad and orders him to answer the boss now. Vlad stares at him and says he doesn't know where the boss is because he's just the guy who sells candles. Not giving an answer to the boss makes the guy lose his temper. He punches the candles, ordering Vlad to call the boss now. But Vlad remains calm while all the candles fall to the ground. The place goes silent. Both the girls working there and the drunks and Jumino watch what's happening. Vlad crouches down, saying it's a pity that so many expensive candles got broken like that. Almost losing his temper, the guy asks if he thinks it's a joke. Vlad asks for permission. The guy asks what he means and he repeats, telling the guy to move his foot. At that moment, the guy loses his temper and comes to kick Vlad. Vlad thinks that a fight is nothing more than a small-scale war. You need to consider the terrain and come up with a strategy. With a broom, he hits the guy right on his supporting foot, making him lose his balance from the kick and hang in midair, while Vlad goes on the attack, saying it's necessary to be audacious. It hits the guy in the jaw with the certainty that this is the way to achieve victory. The girls in the brothel, the drunks, and even One-Armed Jack are impressed. The protagonist knows very well that in the slum, there is a rule that never changes. The right person is the one standing and the losers are on the ground. The other henchmen want to rush in, asking how he dares to do something like that. But Jack tells everyone to stop and says he likes the kid a lot. He apologizes for not being able to clap louder, but it's because he only has one hand. Vlad says it's okay, he doesn't discriminate against anyone with a disability. Jack laughs, saying the kid is wild, but he warns that he'll see him again later, and asks about the child who was with him before, whose name he even forgot. Vlad says if he doesn't remember the name, the child must have died a long time ago. Suddenly someone shouts, asking Jack what brings him there. It's George, saying that if he had known, he would have prepared something for him to eat. Jack smiles, asking since when they've been so close to have a casual meal. George says they can go up since it looks like he brought some visitors. But one-armed Jack replies that he's not hungry and asks if there's something good to drink. George says if he goes up, Marcelo will take good care of him. And with that, Jack says if that's the case, he'll have to give it a try. With that, they leave. And Vlad sighs in relief, thinking that was a close call. The only problem is that a bunch of candles got broken. Sometime later, someone calls for him. It's Jack saying that George spoke very highly of the kid and he knew he had a good eye for people, saying that if one day he gets tired of the smell of candles, he can come work for him. Vlad says he's fine because there he has something to drink, a place to sleep, and food to eat. One-armed Jack smiles, saying they can also provide all that, and he throws a coin, saying it's for the candles. Vlad sees that it's a gold coin and tells Jack that the value isn't that high. But one-armed Jack replies that there's a lot more where that came from if he wants to come work for him. With that, he thanks for the food and leaves with everyone. Vlad thinks the guy is smiling, so maybe the conversation went well. Until Jamina from the second floor calls him, saying that George wants to talk. Upstairs, no one seems happy, and Vlad is impressed, where George gives him a knife as a present, saying that circumstances are changing, and tells him to keep it close at all times. Vlad could tell from the vibe of the brothel. The conversation between Jack and George had been a disaster. Jack said he didn't want to see him selling candles anymore, and George asked what he was going to do then. George explained that some of his sources are warning that Jack is bringing a mercenary knight. Vlad asked if it was someone like him. George said yes, someone like him. And Shkora, Jack has a huge gang, but no one there can defeat a former knight like George. As the saying goes, an army of sheep cannot defeat a single wolf. However, the balance of power would change completely if Jack hired a former knight as a mercenary. George says this would be a huge disadvantage, and that's why he needs Vlad, and warns that soon he will receive his first mission. Harvem had his fingers and heel tendons cut, so he can't walk properly. But naturally intelligent, he learned to read on his own and works as an administrator for Captain Hoover. Seeing Harvem made Vlad realize that sometimes if you work hard, you can be rewarded with a better life. He makes a cut with the sword and someone calls out to him. A voice says he needs to keep his elbows closer to his body when cutting like that. Vlad wonders why he hears a voice every time he starts training. A month ago, he was struck by black lightning and has been hearing the voice ever since. Every time he picks up something that resembles a sword, he hears this demonic voice. He starts thinking that maybe the right thing to do is to buy holy water and not a sword. Maybe the secret is to ignore it, since the more he responds to this voice, the more it keeps talking to him. He needs to stay focused and give his best until the end, concentrating all his energy and strength, and strike with everything he has. However, as soon as he raises his hand, the voice tells him to bring his elbow closer, and instinctively he obeys. He makes the vertical cut and feels that something was different. Before, it was just the sensation of holding a sword, but this time he felt he created something abnormal. An energy that flows beyond the reach of the sword, known as the blade arc, which makes Vlad wonder whose voice is in his head. Under the moonlight, someone cleans a blood-soaked blade, saying that age is starting to catch up. The winter cold now seems to cut right to the bone. He hears a chicken sound, and thinks it's not a bad imitation, but seems like it's someone pretty dumb. He then approaches and tells whoever it is to stop what they're doing because he has arrived. The voice asks if he is Stanger. The man says yes and assumes he must be Vlad. Stanger says he knows Vlad is from the slum, so it's strange that he has golden hair and blue eyes. One might even confuse him for a noble. Vlad hands over the letter from the boss, and Stanger understands that another family has also hired a mercenary knight. Vlad turns, saying he will lead the way and they should arrive in 2 nights. Stanger says nothing and sighs, saying he doesn't know if he should follow someone so idiotic. Vlad says he's smart enough to show the way, but Stanger says he doesn't seem like it, especially since he imitated the sound of a summer bird, but they're in winter. And he warns that if he notices Vlad changing the path, he'll kill him on the spot. Vlad looks at him and tells him to follow quickly because he doesn't want to mess up his first mission either. Stanger is incredulous about this kid. He put on the scariest face he knows, but the boy didn't hesitate for a second. He smiles, thinking he now understands why George likes this guy. He really is a diamond in the rough. Sometime later, the two are in a cave and Vlad is just staring at Stanger. Stanger asks why he's doing that. Hasn't he ever seen a retired knight before? Vlad says not this close, and the man says it looks like he hasn't seen much of the world. Vlad asks where he's from, and the man says he's from Dhaka. The boy recognizes it as a place in the middle of nowhere. Stanger says he wished Vlad would get lost a little so he have an excuse to kill him. But Vlad jokes, asking if knights can't take a joke. Stanger says his dried meat seems very fresh is part of it for him. Vlad says unfortunately he didn't bring any for him and asks if he doesn't have any food. Pulling out 2 old dried meats, Stanger says he does have food. Vlad lights the barbecue and the poor guy is starving, saying the smell is very good. Stanger then asks Vlad if he wants to know something, and warns he will answer 1 question for each piece of dried meat. He says Vlad is lucky because an opportunity like this isn't seen every day. Vlad just looks, asks how many pieces he wants, and says just tell him, and he'll hand them over. But Stanger responds by saying he's proud of him and that a knight can only accept something in a fair trade. Vlad asks if he's retired and he replies yes. Before Vlad finishes, he already asks his name and the man replies Stanger. Vlad asks his age and the man says 42 but tells him not to push his luck. The boy asks if he knows how to use aura. Stanger smiles, saying that it seems Vlad doesn't know much about the world. Not all knights can use aura, and using aura in combat is something completely different. Vlad insists, asking if he can use it or not. Stanger smiles and Vlad gets scared, handing over all the dried meat to the man. They stare at each other and Stanger warns that he only makes trades for something of equal value. But he will be a little generous since he's been eating old dried meat all this time. Vlad felt anxious, thinking the guy would use aura right in front of him. Stanger prepared himself and opened just 1 eye. Vlad asked why he did that. In an empty space, he explained that he needed to do this to summon his world, which is kept in the depths of his soul. He told Vlad to pay close attention, as this was the true essence of a knight. He opened his eye and Vlad was astounded. Stanger had activated the aura on his blade. Sometime later, they had already arrived in Shura. Stanger was complaining that he looked like a beggar and Vlad said it was better for him not to stand out. He said it was too disgusting and that a knight has his dignity. Vlad ignored him and said that when they arrived, Stanger should go through the back door while he went through the front. They then started walking. Stanger found it strange that the place was too quiet. Suddenly, both stopped. Stanger asked if that was normal in this place, to which Vlad replied no. In front of the Smiling Rose, it was full of bodies. Vlad said they would have to split up now and told Stanger to go through the back door. Stanger was about to ask where he was going, but Vlad had already run off, saying he would see him soon. The place was bloodied, and as soon as Vlad entered, he saw that the entire brothel was destroyed. Upstairs, Marcella was tending to George, and he said that one-armed Jack had come and attacked while Vlad was out. Vlad asked if he was okay, and George said it had been a long time since he fought a knight, and immediately asked if he had brought the person with him. Vlad said yes, and that he showed him the back doors, so he should be arriving soon. George said that tomorrow they would settle this damn war with that one-armed Jack, and asked Vlad what he thought of the guy, if he still had all 4 limbs. Vlad said yes, he seemed fine and looked like a decent guy. George asked if he had lost weight, and Vlad said he was very agile. Besides, he knew how to use aura, so they would surely resolve everything tomorrow. At that moment, George was startled as the back door was opening and Vlad said he probably had arrived. George called for Vlad and asked if he was sure the guy had used aura, to which Vlad replied yes. He saw it with his own eyes. George then grabbed the blade and told Vlad to stay behind him. Stanger was not a knight who knew how to use aura. Vlad was shocked as Stanger was opening the door, saying it had been a long time since they last saw each other, and greeted George. At the first moment Stanger appeared, he was cleaning a bloody blade, saying the cold now penetrated deep into his bones, and right behind him, the real Stanger had already been killed. Now face to face with George, he said the guy had changed a lot. George asked why he had come out of nowhere. The guy said that Count Gator had died. It hadn't been announced yet due to certain complications, but soon everyone would know. He raised his glass, saying it was for the poor Count of Gaitar. Enraged, George leaped at him, who calmly observed him. The attack shattered half the floor, but the guy vanished in a second, and no one even saw his movement. From behind George, he said it was for Sigmund, the new Count of Gaitar. George shouted the name, calling the guy Godin, landing a blow that Godin defended. Godin said that the new Lord Sigmund ordered that Knight George return now. George shouted that Sigmund was not his master, and Godin replied that Sigmund knew very well he would do that, and he didn't want him to return either. The entire room was being destroyed in the fight between Godin and George. Vlad grabbed Marcella and said they needed to get out of there. With that, they went out the door. As soon as they were outside, the guys called for Vlad and asked what was happening. Vlad shouted for Barry to call everyone because they had a problem up there, when suddenly George was thrown past him. Marcella, Vlad, and everyone there saw him falling to the ground from Godin's blow. Godin said he was still as idiotic as ever. The members of the brothel were asking if the boss was okay. He was writhing on the ground while Godin watched him from above. Suddenly, a knife came his way and he deflected it. It had been thrown by Vlad, who was right next to him. But Godin ignored him and leaped towards George, with Vlad shouting for him to be careful. George was getting up and was almost struck. Godin looked at him and said he should have followed the order from that day. George replied that he was human and didn't follow repulsive orders like that. But Godin said he was not human but a knight. George gritted his teeth and began to rise amidst the group. Suddenly, Godin said that the night had already been too long. He then closed his eyes, saying he needed to rest. Vlad was running down the stairs and was shocked to see that Godin had activated his blade's aura. He shouted to try to warn everyone. As soon as Godin opened his eye, he told him to stop. White lines began to draw on the bodies of everyone in the brothel. And with a movement of the blade, Godin created a flash that destroyed the entire place.
Welcome to the world of dreams. Dingaro, fly beyond the stars tonight. 暗い夜を越えてゆく Crossing through the darkest night 光を探し続ける Searching for the guiding light Every dream is calling me Every star can set me free Through the sky we'll find our way Into a brand new day 信じて心の声を Believe the voice inside your heart 未来へ羽ばたこう Let's spread our wings toward tomorrow Dingaro Welcome to Dingaro 幸せが待っている Happiness is waiting here Across the universe Dingaro Take my hand and soar above 夢と希望の物語 Story of dreams and hope Powered by our love 星の海を駆け抜けて Running through an ocean of stars 運命を描いていく Writing our own destiny Together we can touch the sky Never afraid to fly so high Every heartbeat shines so bright Burning through the night 終わらない冒険へ Toward an endless adventure 手を伸ばして Reach out your hands We'll never stop believing We'll never stop dreaming Ding